Hey y'all, it's Taylor. Welcome back to my channel where I share my personal finance journey to debt freedom and financial independence. If that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to stay connected. Today we're doing my budget closeout for April 2025, so let's get into it. As usual, we're going to head over to the Accounts tab in Monarch Money, and I'm going to expand everything so we can talk about it. So the first thing you'll notice is that I was able to connect my credit card to Monarch. Because it was a new account, it took a while before it would actually successfully connect, but now it's here and you can see I have a $0 balance. I actually have not been able to use the card at all because I don't even know when my statement period is, and I don't want to use it until I know exactly when that is. But regardless, I'm glad that I don't have a balance at all, which I know is going to help me rather than hurt me. Next, we have all of my checking and savings accounts as well as my pre-tax accounts. I am filming this May 2nd and my rent and utilities and a couple of other expenses have already come out, so that's why my accounts are looking a little bit lower than usual. As for my investments, I did have a little bit of a dip in April, as a lot of people did because of what's going on with the economy, but we are going back up in the right direction, and you can see over the past 30 days I have had an increase of $197.39, so I think we're on the right track there. As for my loans, I didn't make any payments as usual because no payments are due right now and I'm focusing on my savings. And for my net worth review, I'm going to switch the report type to net worth breakdown and we can see the numbers for April. So my net worth for April was negative $7,461.93, which was up $488.17 from March. I was not able to make as much progress in my net worth as I would like because it was a fairly high spend month and I had a couple of things that I wasn't expecting to have to add to my budget, but we will get into that shortly. So next we're going to head over to the recurring tab, switch to the calendar view and go back to April. And everything is pretty much good here except Google Workspace. I'm going to completely ignore Chewy because it was just a difference of 1 cent. But as for Google Workspace, they have increased the price. So after taxes, it has gone from $7.64 to $8.91. And as you can see, it has flagged it for me here, which is why it's in yellow. So I'm going to go into the merchant settings and adjust the amount from $7.64 to $8.91. And then when I click save, now we're back to green because it came out as expected. And if I go ahead to May, now we see $8.91 and we'll see that new amount going forward. So while we're talking about recurring expenses, I did just want to have a quick and transparent conversation about my Monarch Money subscription. I started using Monarch Money in early 2023 and I was paying out of pocket for a couple of months. But then when people started using my Monarch Money referral link, I earned some credits. As you can see here, $288.17. That was then applied to my Monarch Money subscription. So I haven't had to pay for a while, but now they are revamping their referral program. And instead of you getting a credit towards your Monarch Money subscription, you are now getting an optional $50 gift card. And that means if we go to the billing section, that starting May 30th, I will have to start paying Monarch Money out of pocket, which I have absolutely no problem doing. I love Monarch Money. I was paying for it before and I'm happy to do it again. So just wanted to be upfront with everybody about what's going on with my subscription, but all of the videos that I have made about Monarch Money are still very true and about my opinion. I've never been sponsored or anything, but just wanted to let you all know. And now with the referral housekeeping out of the way, let's hop into my monthly budget. So starting with my income, I had my expected total paycheck amounts come in at $3,346. For reimbursements, I got a total of $387. $147 of that came from my Maryland tax refund. $161 came from my Virginia tax refund. I also got a reimbursement from my HSA for something I paid out of pocket. I got a reimbursement from my job for some office supplies that I had to buy, and then also $40 from a friend because we split the lunch bill. For business income, I got $9, which was from my shop, so thank you very much for your support. and it looks like I got $5 in interest, so I'm going to update that. So my total earned income for the month was $3,747. I also have my bank rollover section, which is the amount that was in my bank accounts when the month started. So in my bills checking account, I had $1,547. That's for the rent that's due on the first of the month. And for my spending account, I had $222. Moving on to my needs, my rent and utilities were as expected for the most part. For groceries, looks like I had an extra $1. That's pretty funny, so we'll just adjust that. And then household, I cannot even remember what I bought. Trash bags, cleaning sponges, and tissue. So yeah, we do need to update the total spending here from 29 to 40. As for pet supplies, I normally only spend $80 a month, but we can see that I spent $225. And in short, I had some vet expenses that I had to pay for, general housekeeping like cat litter and things like that. I did get him some toys and enrichment and also some treats. So it was mainly an expensive month for Koda because of medical stuff. Thankfully, he's still very healthy. It was just little things that happened that unfortunately cost a lot of money. Transportation was another surprise spending category. I ended up needing a rental car for something last minute, and yeah, it cost $136, including like the gas and fees and stuff. And then related to what I shared in the pet supply section, I had to take Koda to the vet, and that was $134. Thankfully, I have my sinking fund for Koda, so I was just able to pull money from that in order to cover the expenses. And then lastly, I have my financial fees. This is just the $200 security deposit that I paid to get my credit card. Moving on to wants, I was able to start giving tithes again, which I think I talked about before. Therapy was $100 this month because I had 2 sessions instead of 1. My subscriptions was about $20 less than expected because I canceled Netflix. I like to switch out my subscriptions every now and again based on what I want to watch. For those who have been around on my channel for a while, you'll notice that I have this new spending category here called private. And as the name suggests, this is something that I want to keep to myself for a little while. I may share more details in the future, but right now I'll say that I plan to spend $100 a month in this category. For this month, I spent $92, so a little bit less than expected. For wellness, I think what threw my budget off here was forgetting to use my HSA and then had to pay for it out of pocket. But for the sake of closing out my budget for April, we're going to switch this to $52 because that's what I actually spent. And then for home, I finally got a nightstand, so we're finally starting to get furniture for the apartment one step at a time. Restaurants was $32, just a couple dollars over budget. For gifts, I spent $122. I ended up celebrating my friend's birthday. And then for my annual want subscriptions, NordPass came out. And then we're skipping wealth because I'm not making any payments on my student loans right now. No unplanned expenses, and then we'll come back to my bank rollovers in a second. So for my emergency fund, this is actually $845. And then moving on to vet visits, as I said before, I had to take Koda to the vet. So I contributed $90 and then withdrew $134. So we just have the net total number, which is negative $43. And that's what we have in the budget. Annual bills is as expected. I did withdraw $25 to celebrate a friend's birthday. And then for my priority goal, I actually withdrew the entire amounts of this account and put it in my emergency fund. And when we get to the goal section shortly, I will explain exactly what happened with those accounts. But the last thing we're going to do to close out my budget for April is to update my bank balances, which I have here on the side. So at the end of April, I had $1,673 in my bills bank account, and then I had $108 in my spending account. I know that I have talked about making sure that I have a zero-based budget in Monarch all the time and having $0 left to budget in the top right, but in this particular month of April, this number of negative $132 is actually accurate because even though I have zeroed out all of my categories and I've made sure my bank balances are the right numbers, it's just a fact that I overspent this month. I withdrew a lot of money from my savings, and then I ended up spending a lot of money. So even though my accounts themselves are not in the negative, I did overspend this month. and it happens sometimes. The next thing we're going to do is head over to the reports tab, which I am going to take as a grain of salt because it's saying that I had a total net income of $377.14, which gives me a 10.1% savings rate. But as we just talked about on the budget page for April, I technically overspent by a lot. So I'll probably reevaluate those numbers at a later date. And the last thing we're going to do in Monarch Money is go to the goals tab because I have some updates that I want to make here. So starting with my emergency fund, I did successfully reach my goal to save 1 month of rent, which in my case was $1,392, and I actually saved $1,499. So we are just going to update my target amount now to the next milestone, which is 1 full month of necessary expenses, which includes my rent, utilities, insurance, groceries, household, and pet supplies for Koda. So I'm gonna update this to 2,200 and click done. And we can see that I am almost 70% of the way of that goal. So I'm pretty sure I'll be able to reach that in no time as well. Next, I want to talk about these 2 goals here, the priority goal and the lease renewal. For the priority goal, I was going to save about $300 to get a new pair of glasses, but I learned that I can use my HSA for my glasses, so I did not need the money in this account anymore. And then for my lease renewal, I was planning to save $500, but after talking to my complex manager, they said there are no additional lease renewal fees. There just may be a rent increase. So I also did not need the money in that account. And what I did was just take all of the money that was in the priority goal and the lease renewal goal and just moved it all to my emergency fund, which is my primary goal right now. And I think that was the best decision that I could make. I'm going to keep these goals here just as placeholders in case I want to use those savings accounts for any goals that do pop up in the meantime. But I am going to rename this lease renewal goal here to just home because that's the name of the actual savings account, as you can see here. And then the priority goal, will just kind of leave that as is. So that's pretty much it for my goal updates in Monarch Money. Now we are in my financial planning spreadsheet in Google Sheets, and we are going to update my predictions here to see what my forecast will be for the rest of the year. So my total expected cash between my checking accounts, savings accounts, and my pre-tax accounts was $3,330.19, and my actual cash balance was $3,756.13. We can see my projections are still pretty positive, and thankfully I had more cash than expected. Moving on to my investments, which for now is just my 401k. It was expected for me to have $3,268.33. And instead, I had $3,253.76, which was about $15 off. And then my debts, of course, are going to stay the same since I'm not making any payments. So that means for my net worth, I was expected to have negative $7,058.93. And instead, I had negative $7,461.93. So I wasn't able to make as huge of a jump as I expected, but I still had an increase of my net worth almost $500. So I'm pretty proud of my progress. All right, everyone, that concludes my budget closeout for April 2025. If you're interested in a one-on-one Monarch Money training session, be sure to check out the link in my description. I will also have a link to my coffee shop if you want access to my financial templates, including the financial planner spreadsheet that I shared in today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.